Welcome to the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. I'm Aaron Robbins with Intrinsic First. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes. Ready to dive into the world of leadership? Let's get started. All right. Well, thank you for joining us at the Intrinsic First Leadership Podcast. We have a special guest here today, Mr. Matt Beekman. He is the president of AFCEA San Diego, correct?
Yeah.
And newly went over to a new company, AOG, where he is the executive director. And we're going to primarily be focusing on your work in the nonprofit space. And this is kind of the start of a new series, hopefully, where we're going to have nonprofit leaders coming in and talking about leadership. Which we love to talk about. So I will start out by turning it over to you, and Matt, letting you kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. At AOG, I'm mainly responsible for the business development side, and that's my day job. That's what pays the bills. But I've been involved with AFCEA now for about 6 years since I moved here in San Diego, and I've held a couple different positions. And it was interesting as I've watched a few of your podcasts, having the filter of how do you lead volunteers? How do you be a part of a nonprofit? How do you do that? And some of those differences and similarities. And so it's really exciting to come here and have a chance to talk about the differences and similarities between those two. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to be a part of AFCEA, but then also recognizing there's a lot of hard work that goes behind it. And there's a lot of volunteers that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into an organization like that. So I appreciate the chance to be here.
Yeah. And the fun question of why would people do that with their spare time, right? To work for these organizations. So do you mind kind of starting with just a little background to give us some context of, where you came from? And,
Sure.
Where were you born, your mom and dad's name, maybe social security number.
The street I grew up on. So, I won't go that far back. But so I always knew that I wanted to do public service. My undergraduate degrees are in poli-sci and public administration. And I had this vision of city manager, maybe getting into politics, this idea of, when you're 18 and 19, you want to change the world. Went on, got my master's degree in public administration at Syracuse, and quickly realized that there's this route of consulting. And I liked the idea because it was different work. If you didn't like what you were doing, wait 6 months, the project will change. You'll be able to do something different. And so through my master's program, got to understand what government contracting was all about. And it was the path that I, decided. It also helped that I had a ton of student loans, and knowing that in order to pay for all these student loans, it'd probably be a little bit more lucrative to take the government consulting track. So one of my first foray into government contracting was with Pricewaterhouse's before they moved with Coopers, merged with Coopers. So it was just Pricewaterhouse.
Just PW.
Yeah, it was just PW way back in the day.
Wow,
yeah.
All right.
And it was great. Like, big company, got to see, how big companies work. But then I was there during the merger. A lot of interesting things happened with two cultures crammed together, back to the leadership style issues and a lot of other things. It was an interesting idea. And at that moment, I made a decision of, I like the idea of working for I'd like to explore the idea of working for a smaller company because I was young. I wanted to see how does HR work? How does finance and accounting work? And when you're in a big company, you're in your cubby hole, you support that customer, you don't know what those things are. And just a quick story I'll tell is, on the day that I was interviewing with the small business, I had a problem with my computer at Pricewaterhouse, and I had to call, and they're routing. I'd put in a 9-digit employee number, and somebody on the other side of the country is trying to help me with my computer. In the end, I got it fixed. I went to the interview at this small company called RGS in DC, and the guy who was interviewing me, he's like, I got a problem with my computer. I'm like, oh, I had a problem with my computer this morning too. He sticks his head out the door and says, hey, Steve. And Steve comes down, sits at his desk, and fixes his computer. I'm like, wait, that's the company I want to work for. I want to be able to call for Steve. So I was with RGS for about 15 years. Ended up being able to have an opportunity to be a part of the ownership team. We ended up selling to US Falcon. And at that point, kind of had to make a decision of what I wanted to do. I for a variety of reasons, some of it having to do with competing against the US Falcon and a bunch of other things. But I went to private sector for about 3 years. Long story, had a fun little career there in the entertainment world, doing stage and theater stuff. And it was a good wake up call, because in those 3 years, Someone once gave me advice of like, stick to what you know well and stay with it. And while it was exciting to do something different, I had spent 15 years understanding all the things we talk about, the bureaucracy, the red tape, all those pieces, but I had figured it out. Like I knew what the process was and I had lived in that world, and being outside that world gave me an appreciation for that. And then the other piece of it was the mission-driven idea of supporting the warfighter and being a part of something greater rather than, entertaining 1,000 people in a theater. And there was a big difference there. And so at the same time, my wife and I were talking about moving to San Diego. So I kind of just picked up the phone. I talked to the equity firm that had bought RGS and said, who do you know in San Diego? I had an opportunity to move to a company out here in San Diego. So that's kind of the background of where all that comes from. The one piece I'll add to that is, and right around the same time was how AFCEA came about. I moved to San Diego, had done my entire career in the DC area, didn't know anything about didn't know anybody at San Diego. And I happened to get connected with Jack Turner, who at the time was the president. And I think he's actually been on this podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jack at the time was the president of AFCEA. We went and had lunch, and I asked him the very direct question. I'm like, I want to meet as many people as possible, both contractors and government, as fast as possible. How do I do that? And he said, get involved with AFCEA. And so it's probably worth taking a second to talk a little bit about what AFCEA is.
Sure, man. Plug it. Go for it.
Yeah. I think so. AFCEA, the idea of AFCEA, and the acronym actually stands for a variety of, for a long sentence, which has now been chopped down. So we pretty much just go by AFCEA. But the idea is there's very few places in our industry where academia, government, and industry can kind of come together and solve problems, not with their company hats on. Like there's challenges in the world of AI or DevSecOps or whatever those things are. So let's bring those three cadres of organizations together and kind of solve those problems. And so it gives us the opportunity to and we have members and we have a board, and all those pieces belong to those three groups. And so and we provide conferences and events and tech talks and networking events and all those things. It's an opportunity to give back to the community by providing those services. But the other side of it is it gave me, as a business development person, a chance to meet as many people as fast as I could. And, I'm glad that Jack gave me that advice, because it really was an amazing experience of being able to catch up with that many people.
And you wear your blazer.
Yeah.
At the events.
Yeah.
You got to wear a blazer to meet other BD people.
Yeah, that's my kids always laugh.
I wanted to go back real quick because I think this is part of your story. When you were in the entertainment company and then you decided to move out of that industry back into defense.
You got out.
Yeah. My question is like, while you were there for 3 years, which is still a substantial amount of time, was it a draw to get back to, was it something missing, or was it like one event that said, okay, I'm done, I'm going to go back to defense?
Yeah. I can't think of a single event. I mean, it was probably a series of things. I enjoyed myself. It was fun. It was different, especially that first year, right? Like there's a newness to it. But I think the newness wears off, and there's the question you ask yourself of like, why am I doing this? What as soon as the fun idea ends, there's got to be a deeper meaning. There's got to be a deeper mission. And I think having not had the opportunity to serve my country in uniform, I felt like there was still an opportunity for back to the 17-year-old Matt who wanted to be in public service and figure out a way to do it, is to figure out a way to get back into it, and feeling that calling and knowing that I could make an impact. Okay,
so like after the first year, the honeymoon period was over, and then it was like this sense of like, what's my purpose kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, good. No, I think that's great. And then I wonder if you felt the same thing being drawn to like AFCEA as an example, or was it just an opportunity to meet as many people as possible for you at the start?
Maybe it started that way.
It started, yeah.
Well, that's my normal joke when I'm trying to recruit people into AFCEA is they all have that first reason why.
Right.
And most of it, especially if you're a business development person, is to meet people, right? To get in, to have those right conversations. But you very quickly see the other things and the mission-driven side of it. And so I'll have conversations with people that are thinking about becoming a part of our board of directors, our XCOM, which is kind of the business side of AFCEA. And I'll ferret out the things that they say of, I want to meet people, or my boss told me I had to do it, or, there's those types of things. And I know that's just their surface primary. And I either try and dig for what that secondary is as I'm having conversations with them, or they quickly find it, right? They're like, oh, I really enjoy working with high school students in the STEM field. Oh, wait, we have a committee for that, right? Or what the pieces are. And it's key in trying to find what that secondary mission is.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is because it's typically the what, like what gets you into that new job or that is what you're going to do next or how are you going to do it. But it's that's not going to keep you there, right? It's the why that's going to keep you there. I think. Yeah. And that's kind of I think that secondary piece you're describing is why do you want to do this or.
Shall we go down the motivation road?
Not yet. No. I think there's a lot of good stuff here. I think we can do that.
That's what you're talking about. Is you start maybe with this external reason,
right?
But you're not going to stick with that. It'll fizzle away if you don't find that more internal type of motivation reason, which is all, autonomy, relatedness, competence. What you were describing was primarily relatedness and competence. You felt like you were able to apply your skills effectively, right? You were accomplishing something. And at the same time, there was this connection, right, to something bigger than yourself. That's the fundamental of motivation.
And then when you get to the why, you define it even further by it's a value-based decision, right? Like, what are my values? And that's where you really get deep into it. So that's what you're starting to experience, I think. And I think your intuition's correct when you're talking to people like, okay, why are you here? Why are you really here? How can we keep you here longer? And then you start finding stuff they'd like to do. And working with, high school kids is really takes them back to their high school years, right? And so that really gets to it. So
well, and I think one of the with a nonprofit or a volunteer organization that's under a magnifying glass, because I think what you guys are talking about makes a lot of like I'm going there for more money, I'm going there because whatever those things are. But if you don't have any of those other factors, right? And even on the fear side, right? Like I'm saying this job because my boss is going to get angry at me if I change to another project, right? Like none of that is there.
That's right.
Right? Like the only thing that can be there is some type of intrinsic value to the individual and
or an imposition, right? So there can be from a volunteer perspective, it's like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm the one not participating, right? Or there's this peer pressure, my friends are doing it, so I feel like I have to, or there's this guilt.
The shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Right? But that's a lower quality motivation. But you're not going to probably stick with it, and you're certainly not going to perform well.
Yeah,
and put in a lot of effort unless it's exactly what you're describing. It's like it gets back to your core and not even just your values, but align with your values as part of your identity.
Yeah,
this is who I am now, right?
You had some really good comparison and contrast between like doing it as a job or just doing it as a volunteer. Do you want to share some of that with like how the difference is for you?
Yeah. Me personally, or being a leader of an organization that does that? Or
for both? You personally, actually, and then we can talk about the leader part.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of wanting, I'll give you a couple anecdotes of examples. Like the first event that I ever went to for AFCEA was we were actually handing out to 11 high school students scholarships. And I remember sitting in the room and thinking to myself, what an amazing way to be able to give back to the community and be able to provide to the future of our industry and all those pieces. And as I think through why I'd want to be a part of that, the idea of there being a give and take. And I think that's a huge piece of being a part of a volunteer organization is that, yes, I'm going to get stuff out of this. I'm going to meet all these people, or I even get, to be able to stand on stage and introduce people because of my role. So there is something that I'm getting out of the organization. There's an acknowledgement of that I am getting something, but that I can give back in some way. And very rarely is there a time in my life that I'm able to like write out 11 checks and hand them to these 17-year-old kids, some of which, are in financial need. And that's just, that it's not a physical, it's not a paycheck that I'm getting. It's not a bonus, or it's not PTO, or even a pat on the back, right? Like nobody's going around thanking you for doing this, but you have to really find that piece of it.
So that was really impactful for you then, being able to do that.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that's my favorite event every single year.
Right on.
That's my favorite event.
That's very cool. You've been doing this for how many years now?
Yeah, so I've been different roles for 6 years at AFCEA, but I will not give up. My presidency comes to an end in November, but I've told people like I will be at that event. I will be in I'll be the one at the front being able to hand checks out. It is a big piece.
Right on.
Is that a 1 year thing or 2 years?
It's a 2 year.
Okay.
It's a 2 year.
So
position.
You're already like a year and a half in.
Yeah, I'm almost 2 years in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, next month I'll be done. Yeah.
All right. Who are you turning over to?
So Anna Olson will be our next president.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I mean, back to the idea of leadership within an organization, it's really important in a volunteer-led organization that you think that through years in advance. And so the way that we're set up is that our executive vice president is for the most part going to be the next president, and their role is to be able to be first the right-hand person for the president, but also be able to get more and more responsibility as they come in, because different than a regular job, you can't come from an outside organization. You have to know the players, you have to know the politics, you have to know which volunteers you can lean heavier on. And so there's a piece of that succession planning that needs to happen internally to the organization.
That's always a really good sign of a healthy organization when they have a succession plan and they're actually taking active measures to make it work. So I think it's wonderful you guys are doing that. Yeah. That's really good.
So where do you want to go with this in terms of the volunteer aspect?
Well, so one thing that Jimmy brought up earlier that I'd like to touch on is the kind of the responsibility of the leaders in a volunteer organization to find what that mission-driven value is.
Yeah.
And I think that's really critical because it's different for anybody. I mean, we could survey the 12 people who are on the executive, the XCOM at AFCEA and say, why are you here?
Right.
Some of them will be honest and give the first level one, but all of them have that other. And it's, I think one of the challenges that a leader has in a volunteer organization is to have those conversations very early and then have check-ins to make sure, like, are you achieving it? Has it shifted? And by the way, I can't have 20 people on the scholarship committee, right? So, where are other people's skill sets? And so there's a skill sets and mission. So it's kind of an understanding of where that give and take is for each individual to make sure that they'll stay on for more than 6 months. That's their boss isn't telling them to do it, or there's not a sense of shame or whatever of why they should do it. Yep. And put them in a position that they feel like they're being motivated, and frankly that that FC is getting value out of them. And so we have people that are really good at marketing materials. Well, great. Like, you do that in your day job. Are you willing to do that for us here? And we get all this great your resume of great being able to put together marketing materials, but can you now do it for us? And being able to find that balance, which is really important.
Yeah, and I think that those individual values are super important, because to make an organization really work really well is to align everyone's values with the values of the organization. And when you have that alignment and you figure that out, then that's when you start getting really high performing organizations that last for quite some time. So I think it's important, but it just takes time, right? It just to be able to talk to each person individually and figure out what those values are and where they want to do. Because I imagine you probably may get some people that do marketing, but they want to try and expand their skill set, and maybe AFCEA is a way to do it, or a nonprofit. Yeah. But being able to understand where they want to go while they're there is important as well. So, yeah, attending to those needs. Yeah,
and you bring up a good point. A lot of people will use a nonprofit or a volunteer position to be able to test things out in safe water.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've never run a conference before, but I'd really like to know what it takes to run a conference. Good. Like, you're willing to raise your hand and say you're willing to help run one of our conferences. We'll take it. Right.
Right on.
So there is that piece of it. And another piece of it is like, people fail all the time in our organization. We're not going to fire you. Like, I often jokingly say, like, I'm going to cut your salary in half. Right. But when you have volunteers, so it's a safe place where we all know that there's going to be failures, and we all have times where we're writing a bunch of proposals and we're going to go MIA for a week or two, and having that camaraderie and the ability to work amongst a team and give forgiveness, give some grace.
Yeah. So, and the contrast to that in corporate world, if you will, is like, that might be your job. And if you don't do it really well, you may get that pay cut, or you may lose your job. And so there's this fear, sometimes, where employees are afraid of losing their pay.
But there's an ability or this option for leaders to use those things, right? Where in volunteer leadership, you don't have that option, right? So you have to use influence and good quality motivation. I was thinking about, like, I wonder if most people actually start these things because of external reasons, right? And then the ones that stick around are the ones that find, but it sounds like, you had this calling. Like, when I was graduating high school, I didn't want to go fix the world.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to school, and I was doing engineering because my guidance counselor said you're good at math.
You're standing in that line at the time.
Right? Yeah. Like, okay. I guess maybe that's why I partied pretty hard my freshman year.
Yeah.
End up taking a year off. But I'm curious. So, you've been in here now for 2 years leading this organization. What have you seen from the others on the board? You said it sounded like there's 12 people like on the board. What are the trends that you see for the people who are more engaged? You don't have to name names or anything, obviously, but like, I'm curious, what are those trends that for the ones that are really engaged versus the ones that aren't? And what are you seeing there?
It's an interesting balance, because there's a benefit of having some institutional knowledge in the organization. So keeping people in leadership positions over the years is good because they can say, oh, 2 years ago we tried to do that, it didn't work, or you should call so and so at that hotel if we're having a problem with that event, right? Like that's a benefit. The downside to that is just as in private, just in regular organizations, is that you get stuck in we do it the same way we did it last year and nobody thinks different. So one of the trends or one of the things we have is having conversations with people of like, we appreciate your institutional knowledge. Maybe you should move out of the chair of this position, give someone else an opportunity. But we need to keep your institutional knowledge around. And so then there's this constant push and pull of keeping the right number of people with institutional knowledge and bringing in some new blood, some new ideas, some people that might have a different mission, a different vision for some of these committees. So that's one of the pieces. I think one of the other trends that I've seen is the folks that are doing it for the right reason, have the mission, are willing to do any job. Like there's a story that I tell about our symposium a few years ago. There was threat of a government shutdown, and we had to move the date, which threw off a bunch of vendors. And on the day of the event, the caterer that we ended up getting didn't have enough people. And here, like our exec board is in suits, carrying coolers and chafing dishes and bringing all these things to the conference. I mean, those are like, who cares what your title is? Like somebody could be like, I'm the committee head, I'm going to go find volunteers. It's like, no, we're all rolling up our sleeves. And so I think that's another trend, is the people that are willing to figuratively and literally roll up their sleeves and take any chip in when anything is needed is another trend of the types of people that are successful being a part of a board like this.
Yeah, no job is too big or too small.
Yeah,
kind of thing. I mean, that's a trait you look for, I think, in any employee as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, are you saying that that's the type of person you typically see that volunteers and does this kind of stuff, or is it
so
hit or miss with that?
That's a good, like, is there a certain demographic of a person's personality who's drawn to it, I think is what you're asking.
Yeah. So like, of those 12, are there similarities that they all have that like, maybe this means, people who are more likely to volunteer for this kind of stuff are more like this, or typically do these things? It could be behavioral.
Yeah. So couple things I can think of is they tend to slant on the type A personality, right? Like someone who's back to the rolling up their sleeves. Like they see a problem, they're and not that people that are type B aren't as proactive, but they're more, I guess, more in your face. Like they're willing, like there's no it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? Like just step forward.
Leaning in.
And again, back to they'll fail. They'll probably lean in too hard. They'll probably step on someone's toes.
But they're going to learn.
But they're going to learn, and it's important. So I think that's a piece of it. I think a fair number of people similar to me become a part of the XCOM specifically, are a part of the business development world, because there's a networking aspect to it, getting to meet other leaders in other companies, which is a piece of it, which is a huge benefit. And the downside of that is we tend to lose out on having people who are maybe more sitting at the customer site and know the true problems of some of our customers, or know the technology or have the engineering background to be able to do it. And so having that balance is sometimes a little bit of a challenge.
So you're heavy on extroverts.
We are.
So you're such an introvert from what I know.
It's tough. I come out of my shell every now and then. It's a tough thing. Right. But I think that's exactly, I mean, we want people that are willing to lean forward, take any position. And so I don't know if it's a little bit of self-selection that goes on, right? So those of us that are talking to those that we're trying to recruit into the board.
You're recruiting like-minded people.
Yeah, exactly. So. But you do want some diversity of thought. Sure. And I think it's probably a place where we could do better.
I got to imagine it's probably the hardest thing is to figure out, okay, this person's different, but we need them, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard, because you got to almost like surrender your beliefs and how things should be.
Yeah.
Like introvert, extrovert, right? So that's a great example where extroverts tend to like kind of migrate towards one another.
Yeah.
And they overwhelm those introverts, and then they can, but to be able to see that as an example, I think is really important. And that's how you kind of how that diversity of talent comes in.
Yeah.
Not everyone thinks the same, but.
Well, and I'll give an example, although I wouldn't say, I won't classify him as an introvert, but we have one member of our XCOM, Daryl, who recently came on board, and he wasn't quite sure. He's like, what can I do to help? I just want to kind of help. By the way, I just finished my MBA. I was like, oh, you have a relationship with San Marcos. Let's see how they get involved, right? The academia side of it. And all it took was giving him an idea and a spark. Yeah. And then complete autonomy, right? Like we've never done that before. We've never created strong relationships with local universities. I don't even know what it looks like. So by the way, there's not a model. Like I can't give you a mission statement or a playbook. Knowing that there's a little bit of interest, they have a skill set. and then just giving them complete autonomy and watching how that's grown right now, like San Diego State and UC San Diego, all these universities and colleges are now a part of our chapter,
Awesome.
which a year ago weren't there and wouldn't have existed if this guy didn't raise his hand and say, I'd like to try something, and us giving him the ability to do it.
So I think that goal piece is important too. It made me think of when I first joined the government, like right out of college, I'm in the government. And I remember it was tough because everyone's so busy. It's very reactive. We're down on this, highly classified project. And, I remember my boss kept telling me like, look, just find stuff to do. Right. And I just remember feeling frustrated. Right. You think, well, that's autonomy. You can do whatever you want. So just go do it. It's like, but I had no direction. I didn't even know what I was trying to achieve. And so it's I think that combination of you have autonomy, but you also have a goal and direction towards it. So you're able to just run. Yeah. Right. And not being afraid of, like you said, stepping on toes a little bit or just doing something. Cause I remember thinking I was an engineer. So I just remember thinking I was very risk averse, and it's like, well, if I go do that, but I don't want to like do something to waste time or, not. Right. So it's more thinking about the reasons not to do it, which I guess is an optimist, pessimist type of perspective as well. But yeah, and it all kind of fits with what you're talking about.
A common misconception with autonomy in motivation is that it's like the freedom to do whatever you want. Yeah, that's not true.
Autonomy is not freedom.
Right. It's got to be within the norms and structure. And and so there's some type of, so by giving him a goal, like Aaron's saying, just, go check this out and see if you can establish a relationship. That sometimes doesn't take much, but then he can just go run with it. Yeah. And like you said, so that works.
And I think the other piece to that is, and, check back in with me if you've hit a problem, or you check back in with me if you need another committee or another skill set added to this. But so I'm here to support you. And I've given you, like you said, kind of the bumpers of what you're going to stay within, which, for AFCEA is like, we bring together these three industry, government, and academia. We have a huge push to help the STEM high school students, and we have a big push to help emerging leaders in our industry. And that's about all I tell people.
That's perfect. And that's great. Yeah.
And as long as what you're doing falls within that, I'm not going to get pissed off if you did something like this. This is what you should be doing.
And the check-in is a great way to give feedback, and that allows that structure to occur and kind of formulate as you go forward. So that's perfect. Yeah.
So you're at RGS for 15 years.
Yeah.
Right. And you were in leadership roles. I assume you had people working for you.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the differences or similarities, or I guess, are there differences in how you led when you were there at the company versus how you lead as the president of AFCEA?
Yeah, I think, I've read in many places, it's the difference between authority and influence, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a title of president at AFCEA, which I guess gives me some authity.
And a staff, right? With a
right. The Schiller medallion.
You can slow time.
Yeah, exactly. Got it. My name tag says like Grand Poobah. No, so the idea though is when you're in an organization, there's an org chart, and there's you're approving timesheets, and you're doing expense reports, and you're having performance reviews, and so all of that naturally creates a sense of authority. Yeah, like of like, I am your boss, right? Like, you can point to the org chart and this is my PM, or this is my vice president. And so being in those roles, you almost can get a little lazy because the person is going to do what you ask them to do, right? You sign their timesheet, you sign their paycheck, those types of things. And there's plenty of great leaders that work in those models. And I've been a part of many of those organizations where people do really well in those models and don't lean too hard on that.
It's called inherent power.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah, it's a great.
And whether you use the coercive power or not, right? Or reward power, those are more extrinsic types of powers. Essentially, what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I think even those what's that term again? You just used
inherent power.
Yeah, like
you still have a title, right? As AFCEA, you're still the president. But I think what you're getting at is that it's sort of the levers you have to pull.
Yeah.
To use the reward or coercive power as part of that inherent. Power.
Yeah. So when you're in a volunteer organization, there's no levers.
Right, exactly.
And so it's all about...
you could like shun someone or maybe like embarrass them or something in front of the rest. But that's pretty blatantly negative.
Right? Yeah, it affects the other 11 people in the room real quick.
Yeah, you give them a gummy bear.
Right. But actually I take that back. There are levers in the sense that like Emily Gwartz recently took over our membership group and did an amazing job coming out of COVID. Membership drops, and she came in with all these great new ideas. And putting her up for an international award to be Emerging Leader of the Year. She just won AFCEA of the Month. So finding places where we can show them we appreciate this. I can't give you a bonus check,
Right.
but I can find organizations or awards or things where you can get recognized beyond me sitting in the room with the 12 people saying great job. And by the way, that gets her boss at her day job aware of what is going on there. So there are places where there are levers to be able to say great job, we appreciate you. And we've been very fortunate here. Our chapter, we won 3 40 under 40s. We're up for Model Chapter of the Year. So there are places where we've leaned forward to say, we can't give you a bonus check, but we're all going to work really hard to
that way you just described there, the key there is that it's not transactional, right? It's like if you do this, then we'll give you this bonus. But in this case, it's like, well, now that you did this, like we recognize you for the hard work, and then you provide the award. So it's not expected. So and I think that's huge in what you just described there. And I believe, and I think we're probably going to end up getting to, is that can be also be done in a regular business, a regular organization.
Of course.
Yeah. So I think where a lot of times leaders get caught up as a transactional thing. Like they if you get so many sales, then you're going to get this bonus, right? And then that transaction is extrinsic, and we know that that's just not. That's not sustaining over time. It's just
doesn't lead to better performance or creativity or any of that.
It leads to deviant behavior. In fact, that people start cutting corners to try.
Yeah.
I just saw a documentary on the Biggest Loser and how they're there for like a lot of money, and then they start cutting corners to cut weight, without doing it the right way, and it's actually detrimental to themselves. And it's not sustaining. So then they do these interviews, and then they're all big again, and it's like, it's because they were doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's kind of, I think there are levers you can pull as you're describing, but I want to advocate that those are the same levers you can still pull in corporate America, or any organization, I guess. And so,
well, the if then is super important, because you can hold it's the if then is you can hold a bonus over someone's head, right? Hey, if you I need to motivate you, so I'm going to say, hey, if you do this, there's a bonus in it or something,
or
right?
A promotion, right? Or even a promotion or a salary increase, all that, yeah.
And so, but with a recognition, it's much less like strong with that in terms of, I would have to assume, and this also gets back to the better you know your values, the better you understand who you are and why you're doing this. If it's an internal reason in the first place, then you're not going to just work hard on this volunteer thing so that you can get recognized, right? I'm sure that there are some people like that, and that gets into, like how we grew up and our experiences of, how did we learn how to fulfill and satisfy our own self-esteem and ego. And I think the older we get, the more we learn, and we have these experiences where it's like, oh, you know what, that happened and it did make me feel good, but then
24 hours.
But then there's another thing and another thing, right? There's always that next thing. That's the problem with those external and imposed type of motivational states. So it's much easier. And as long as you don't do that in a way that you're recognizing somebody where it then becomes, oh my gosh, if I do that again, maybe I'll get another recognition, right? Because now all of a sudden the reason for their doing something has changed to more of that extrinsic reason. But I think, it's cool. It's more inherently internal,
and I think because
autonomous.
In a volunteer organization, as we're describing, you don't have those external levers. You don't
have as much, right?
So you're kind of forced to work on influencing people and doing things.
And really, that's what you're doing is by recognizing somebody, you have two potentials. You're either reinforcing their esteem or ego, right, and creating this contingency, or which you want to do, you're helping satisfy their basic psychological needs, which is you're helping them feel more autonomous, right? Oh man, I've got control over this, and this is good. Oh, I feel connected. I'm contributing part of something bigger than myself, and oh yeah, that was effective. I was able to apply my skills effectively. That's competence, and so that's really where you want recognition to do that. And it sounds like in this example, that's exactly what it did.
I just had, just listening to you guys talk about that, had a pretty interesting awareness on my side, is that I think even in my day jobs that I've had over my career, that I've had okay, I can only give them a pay raise once a year, or bonus is only once a year. Like, what am I doing the other 11 months? And so I think my personality or leadership style is driven on what's their intrinsic value? What's the mission for them in in their regular pay job? And it can be the 21-year-old who just joined the company and they want the pat on, all they need is a pat on the back. Right. And trying to find those things. And I guess that has been a style of mine, which then makes it probably easier to become a leader of a volunteer organization because it's already a well-worn path, right? And it's part of that style.
I mean, that's the biggest thing that we preach is like, and Jimmy and I both, I think, kind of realized that around the time we were at CSA and started really getting into stuff. He went and got a master's in performance psychology. I was doing IO psychology. And as we learn more about these theories and the models, and particularly motivation theory, which is self-determination theory, is what we're talking about, those 3 basic psychological needs, you can fall into it. And if you've got the right intuition, if you have a good development of values and purpose and identity, it's going to tend to kind of flow that way and you're going to do it. But once you start understanding that that's exactly what you just did was you satisfied a person's need for autonomy, relatedness, competence. Now you can make it repeatable.
Yeah.
And you can be more deliberate in your behaviors and understand why this didn't work and why this didn't, and continue to refine those, gut intuition.
Yeah. So check this out. So like we talked about going into nonprofit to as a safe place to try different skills out. Right. And I think because of the lack of constraints you have with leading a volunteer organization, you have to rely on some of these other skill sets that we're talking about, like, satisfying someone's psychological needs or figuring out their purpose and doing what you're doing. And then those are skills that you're developing in this nonprofit because you don't have the levers of taking away their pay or demoting them.
Right.
But now if you get good at that, that does spill over into your day job.
Yeah.
I believe it makes you a better leader overall. So if you're able to identify it and be able to repeat it, because now you're able to label what you're doing. And that's not just a gut feeling of why you treat someone the way you do, but it's going to satisfy their psychological needs and that's going to help them perform in the long term and make life better for everyone around them, honestly. So
it sounds like you led pretty similar in your work leadership roles versus your volunteer leadership roles.
I didn't recognize how similar it was until having this conversation. It's a pretty interesting. And two other things that'll add to it is the first is I think then you can see other leaders who lead that style even clearer.
I was just going to ask you who was your role model? I guess when you first got in.
Yeah. So the founder of RGS, and this is exactly that. So you just hit my second point right away is that I'm wondering what you guys have studied, if a big piece of leaders who lead in that way once were led that way, right? Like, so they're modeling it early in their career. They were given of like, oh, that feels much better. That's the way I want to be led.
Right.
So I guess that's my first question, and I can get your question.
So typically what happens is if they lead with their gut, right? You hear people say, oh, I just go with my gut. And when I hear that, it tells me that they know what works, but they don't understand why it works. And so that just tells me they might do something, but it might be different in a different scenario. So it's not consistent, consistently high performing. I see it with football coaches all the time. Like they have one good season and they have a bad season. Oh, it's the talent. No, I think it's usually the leadership because they're not consistent with the decisions they make. And that's because they don't understand what they do and why it works. So some leaders are typically understand why it works. They may have had a role model to help them understand this is why you do what you do and why it works. And then if they get there, then they can have, consistent performance over time. The ones that worry me are the ones that don't really know.
Or they stumbled on it?
Yeah, they just stumbled on it, but they don't know why it works. And sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. So you see...
Or lack of self-awareness too. I mean, there's a lot of leaders. I'm sure you've met people like I've seen all the time where it's like, hey, are you a good leader? Do you support your employees? Do you give them autonomy? Of course I do. That's like my main thing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I've been watching you for the last couple hours and you're doing the exact opposite of that. In fact, everyone hates you.
Yeah.
And
they read a bunch of books on it. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
So this is not rocket science. None of this is rocket science. And I'll say it over and over again. What makes it really difficult is applying it.
Yeah.
And being intentional with that application, right? That's what, and it starts with self-awareness. You've got a great position right now, what you're doing. Aaron's like interviewing a bunch of different people in an organization, and you can see right through some of the BS with oh yeah, I always take care of my people, but then they got to check out with me before they go home.
Yeah.
something silly like that.
Yeah.
But some of these things, they're skills. I just taught a communication workshop last week, and one of my lessons learned was we did this sort of exercise at the end with my software where we were going through a role play conversation, and I just taught essentially active listening was one of the topics, And so what does it mean to reflect feelings, right? And so we're talking about, okay, hey, so I think we're in a position in this conversation where we need to reflect feelings. And so does anyone have an idea? Like, what should we say that would reflect feelings? And so, in a lot of the comments that come back were like, well, but you knew the goal, right? And so it sounds like you're just frustrated because, you didn't blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so is that, you said it sounds like you're frustrated, but you're basically, isn't that more just leading them down to kind of blame them for something?
Yeah.
Or are you really just trying to say you didn't achieve your goal or, all these? And so those are things like having that self-awareness and understanding those skills, and just, it's like a sport, right? You don't become good at basketball from watching. You got to watch someone else but like going to a class, you have to do it, right? And then see, oh, so that wasn't that. And now I'm starting to learn. And so it is, it's not rocket science, but it's not easy. It's very, very challenging because there's
to apply
1,000,
that's what I'm saying. That's right.
1,000 different situations for the, same thing, and 1,000 different ways you could go.
I was just reading Never Split the Difference. I don't know if you've read it, but
one of the Chris Ross.
Yeah. One of the
got drunk with him, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
Sort of. Like, I don't want to say, we're buddies or whatever, but we happened to be at the same happy hour, and I talked to him for about 10 minutes. He was cool.
You were both drinking. You were in the same room.
That's right. That counts.
I recognized his New York accent.
I would play that much better if I were you.
Right.
But one of the things that ties to what you were just saying is, he gives a bunch of ideas of how to negotiate, and he's like, they're going to feel really uncomfortable at first, and it's going to feel like a playbook. It's going to feel like the football player who's like going through the drills of the blocking and tackling, but you got to build that like muscle memory as a leader.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
And it's going to feel really uncomfortable. And I think that's that first step that really stops people from, I would suspect, stops people from going down that path. They tried a few times. They went to a class, they read a book.
Yeah. Or had a bad experience.
This doesn't work. Yeah. They don't understand.
Yeah.
But so in that, in his negotiation tactics, right? First of all, you got to be comfortable in this being silent, like giving them space to really think through. And then I think the number one word he really goes to is the empathy, right? It's to put yourself in their shoes. And then what I love about that book, the one line is like, when they say that's right, then you got them. Like if they say you're right, then they're just kind of giving you lip service. But that's right is where you understand me. And then that's where I think that works.
Mutual
that's great
understanding.
It's a great leadership because it works because everything's a negotiation, right? With your
Yeah.
employees, right?
Yeah.
Everything, and even more so when you're in a nonprofit organization.
Or a parent.
Yeah.
That's a whole different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's where we're going. I think that's spot on. I love that book. It's a great book.
Yeah.
So,
And a thought that you just brought up was kind of the beauty and the silence, like in this technology world. Some of that's just you let the email sit for 2 or 3 days,
Yes.
or you stop using IM, like while you guys are having this discussion, like how do you pull out of it? And I think one of the benefits that we have at a volunteer organization is, we meet once a month. We don't have staff meetings. We're not sitting around the same water cooler. And I think there's a benefit to that because we come together at our XCOM meetings and then we all go off and do our things, and it gives us a chance to breathe and be able to settle into the idea of what was just said and follow with people on our own time. And so actually, I think that's beneficial of that space is naturally
so you're
created.
advocating for less meetings, right?
I'm always advocating for less meetings.
So you know what else I
I'm with
noticed? So you haven't once mentioned NDIA, right?
Yeah.
Which is like a competing nonprofit organization. But what that tells me is that your focus is not about, Dr. Logan has a book called Tribal Leadership, and they talk about the stages of an organization, whether it's nonprofit or a profit organization. And so you're almost at that highest level where it's not like we're great, you're not, but it's just we're trying to make the world better, right? Or we're trying to reach some bigger purpose, and it doesn't matter that there's other organizations or there's other people. Not that NDIA is like a competing where they're trying to. They might schedule another symposium 2 days after your 2-day symposium in November or something. But that's more synergistic.
It's purposeful. Yeah,
you do that on purpose. But anyways,
it's a fair point. I mean, I also sit on the board at NDA, so I have.
But in a company, it's easy to
think,
see that,
right?
right?
We
think about our one day we're competing, one day we're teaming with a company in our industry, which is weird.
Yeah.
Right. I think for the most part, that doesn't make it down to the employee level. But there is just more of this tendency of like, well, if you win that contract, that means I don't.
Right.
Right. And in the nonprofit, there's not that same, like if you
That
guys,
that level of
you know,
competition,
if NDIA gets this, then you're both going after the pool is huge.
Yeah. The pie's ever growing. It's not being cut into pieces.
I mean, blue ocean.
But your point's a good one. If you had asked anybody who was involved with FCEA and NDA 4 or 5 years ago, I think there was not purposeful competition, but there was frustration on what's the difference in our missions. Where, you know, you're scheduling an event the same day we are. We're trying to pull from the same pool of attendees and those types of things.
Sure.
So there was, you know, Ken Garber and Jack Turner, who were the two presidents at the time, kind of put their heads together. Both people who've been on this podcast put their heads together and said that's not going to work. So, you know, we've created very clear mission statements for both organizations, and both of us will talk about the other in a way that there's actually a benefit, right? Like of being, you'll get this type of stuff from NDIA, you'll get this stuff from FCEA.
So they kind of differentiated their missions.
Right. Yeah. And it was
cool.
And it really helped being able to explain it to the general public, and has led to a lot of co-led events, or like you said, our 2 big conferences this year. We purposely, like, people are flying in. We might as well do ours Tuesday, Wednesday, do theirs Thursday, Friday. Sure. And it helps. But I think it's easier in the nonprofit world because it's not, you know, you're taking my win away.
So I have a fixed budget. Which of the 2 should I sponsor? As Intrinsic first. Should we sponsor FCEA or should we sponsor NDI? No.
I'm not going to answer your question because I'll get myself in trouble. But but I will say, like, that we get that question commonly, and I believe we've built a culture now over the last few years of both organizations that we will give an honest answer and ask, like, what are you trying to get out of it? What type of people are you trying to reach? What is your budget? Trying to be
unbiased in a biased situation, kind of thing.
And I think if I answer that question honestly, and the solution and the answer comes down to NDIA, you'll remember that and come back to FCEA and the next year and be like, oh, they were honest. I'll come to have the question again.
It's all goodwill.
It's well worth it.
Yeah, I think providing that, you know, here's the benefits of each organization, allowing them to choose, I guess makes sense. But
it's good sales, but it's also good leadership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where I was going. So, but not saying, oh, they suck, we're great. And when I hear that, I always think twice. And so, but yeah, that I think is great leadership there.
Yeah,
very cool. So I want to go back to your role model. Did you kind of left that topic? Did you have one that you want to tell us about?
So yeah, there's a couple I can think of throughout my career, but the one that was kind of the nugget that started it, his name is John Knopfsinger, and he was a vice president at James Madison, where I went to undergraduate school. And I was really fortunate my senior year to get a fellowship, and they give the 7 fellows become kind of interns, glorified interns, to the 7 vice presidents of the university. So I was assigned to him, and it, like, all these things are flooding back to me as you guys are talking about what the actual official word is behind stuff that he just did in the way he was.
Sure.
But he was relatively young, and I think had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder in the fact that he had to prove himself or differentiate himself from the gray-haired, suit-wearing vice presidents at the university. I mean, I think he was probably 37 at the time. And so he was the type of guy that when I went in for my internship, it wasn't, you know, we need to do these 7 things. He sat down with me like, what do you want to do? Like, I want to get into public service. Oh, cool. We're lobbying the state of Virginia right now. Why don't you sit in on that meeting? Right. Cool. He quickly wanted, his belief is that he owed me something in the internship. I didn't owe him hours. I didn't owe him anything. And so his ability to do that early on had that good feeling. And I was like, oh, here's somebody who practices.
He gave me choice right off the bat. What do you want to do? Like
very servant leadership.
It's really cool.
I'm here to support you.
Yeah. I mean, 2 other quick stories about him is, during finals, I had to do a certain number of hours a week was a requirement. So during finals, I walked into his office and he looked at me and like, I'm just beat. And he's like, I'm going to 2 hours of meetings. There's a couch in my office. I'm not going to say anything, but dude, you need a nap. And like his idea of like leadership in that moment was what's best for you. Like, you're going to be a puddle if I bring you to this meeting, but what you need in this moment is a nap. And so I'm going to go.
I'm sure you had a really comfortable couch.
Yeah. And it was, I spent many hours sleeping on that couch. It was wonderful. Then, so I'll circle one other quick story is I'd learned that he passed away at a very young age. I went back to JMU for a homecoming, and a boy came up to me and was his son.
Wow.
And we had this interaction, and his ask of me, which was a really beautiful moment, was everyone tells me about my dad. Like, my uncles tell me about my dad, or my mom tells me about my dad, but nobody knows him in the world that you did. Can you tell me some of those stories? And so the ability to tell a young kid of the leadership qualities that this man had it gave me a chance to, again, give back and be able to show what he did. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
I had a mentor in the military, Phil Murphy Sweet, and he passed away at an IED in Iraq. And it was a really sad moment. and then I went to go teach at the Naval Academy, and I was in charge of the economics department, and I was an academic advisor. And sure enough, his son walks in, chooses econ, and so I was in charge. So he was assigned to another academic advisor, and I was like, hey, Ryan, I got this kid. He's mine. So, and I got to be his mentor going through that. Was kind of a way to give back. It was a really cool moment. But yeah, I hear you on that one.
And I think there's a responsibility of like, that just shows the flow down of leadership, right? And it might not be that tight of a circle of where it's somebody's child.
Yeah.
But there's an idea of John had that influence on me, and you had somebody, and then like, who are the other young individuals that show the propensity for those skills? Now, how do I foster that? How do I give them opportunities, whether it be within my company or within AFCEA?
You see it the most like in the NFL, like, who's a Andy Reid, disciple and all that, like, who came from the Belichick clan. Cause it's out there. Everyone sees and talks about it, but I think it does. You're exactly right. I think it happens in really good companies that
mindset thing happens in research too.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you came from this line of research or you came from that line of research.
Yeah.
Just the perspectives we get it's the experiences we have, right? There's an aspect of our personality traits, like what we were genetically born with. But, the research from twin studies shows that's really only about 30% of what we do and why we do what we do, right? The rest is the experience we have, and it's the people that influence us for sure.
And then there's the other side of that, like that hits me hard, is there's a ton of responsibility in that, right? If I'm going to take this young leader underneath my wing and give them opportunity to grow, I could screw that up pretty bad. And so there's that side of it too. You could, and so that puts a lot of weight on leaders, right? That's another piece of leadership where there's a responsibility of how do you foster that and not mess it up.
Right. No, sure. You gotta be careful when you go to Vegas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Have those happy hours and all that.
Well, or even just like them seeing your internal dialogue, right? Like when are you taking the high road? Like, how are you making decisions? Like just little comments that can have that impact. And we run into it with AFCEA in the fact that not only do these individuals come together, but they all work for companies, right?
Yeah.
And those companies have them be a part of the board for a reason. And so there's times where it's like, oh, my company really wants to sponsor this, or my company wants our logo on this. Yeah. And making those decisions and trying to be consistent with those types of decisions of like, we have a practice where we will not advertise for a company, but we'll advertise for an event where a company is a sponsor, right? So choosing those types of decisions. And I think putting those practices in place and making sure that everyone sees that and everyone's aware of that is an important piece.
Do you like, typically you have like one major sponsor for some of those events, right?
Yeah.
Do you like, is there any decision or thought, like make sure it's not the same company every time? Like not always like Booz Allen or Deloitte. Is that ever come into consideration?
Yeah.
Or do you just take their money, call it good?
I mean, so it is a little challenge, right? Because we're a nonprofit, and so we need to be able to figure out a way to elicit sponsorship, but again, keep diversity of sponsorship. Okay. And so oftentimes what we'll do is we usually go to last year's sponsors first and give them first right of refusal. Okay. So that oftentimes when you see the same company that comes up, but I am proud to say there's been a few events recently where the company that has maybe done it 2 or 3 times has taken a step back and be like, oh, I won't be the platinum. I can move to gold because you have 2 or 3 other companies who want to do it. And it gives them an entry into the organization. But we don't have a rule about it, but I think there's an awareness that's a challenge.
That works. No, that's good.
But there's, back to the whole idea of we're also serving the companies that support our industry here in San Diego. So we're like, we want to make sure that we're getting what the reason that they're a part. They're giving hours to their employee. And sometimes those are significant hours, like during the week of a conference. And
when you're hauling, boxes.
Yeah. Like,
no, I get it. No, it's great.
My wife often jokes. She's like, so this is the week of the symposium. Like you're working 40 hours at that job, the one that doesn't pay you. Right.
Yeah.
And that's part of and the company sacrificing for that. And it's, we appreciate that. It's not unseen.
Right on.
So 2 years you're finishing up.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of, and what are you hoping that you kind of left behind, and where AFCEA is going to go?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is I had 3 goals when I started. The first was to put us in play to be model chapter of the year. That's for all the chapters across, and we're in the nomination period now. So I won't actually fingers crossed. But to even be able to put together a strong application, I'm really darn proud of. Well, we looked at it 2 years ago and said, here's the criteria. What do we need to do to get us to a space to even put an application in? So I'm very proud of that. Win or lose, I'm very proud of that. It's kind of out of my hands at this point. Another was our emerging leader program. which this is recognizing those under the age of 40 in our industry and giving them a place to be able to interact with maybe people that are more senior in their career, to get some mentorship that's outside their org chart, right? Those opportunities, give them a chance to collaborate together. So, networking, social events, but there was, I believe here in San Diego specifically, there wasn't much for that demographic, that under 40, but are leaning forward, looking for places to be able to step in and do stuff. So we expanded our emerging leader program. We got emerging leader, our emerging leader program was recognized by International, and 2 years in a row, we've won emerging leader, the emerging leader award for individuals, both Emily and Anthony Olmo. And so I'm very proud of being able to kind of find a group that wasn't being served. And but the plus side of that is now I have a flood of emerging leaders. They're like, I'll volunteer for a conference, and it's perfect. The downside of that is many companies are a little less likely to give them hours. They're like, oh, I can give our BD person as overhead, but now you're asking this smart engineer who's 30 to spend 30 hours at a conference is challenging.
Well, that's how you're going to weed out the ones that are doing that just because they want the recognition versus the ones that actually see the value and align with it.
Yeah, that's key. And then the third is the main, that first event that I went to was the STEM scholarships, and being able to continue to give more and more, because we're a nonprofit. So I tell people all the time, they see our conferences, like, $10,000 sponsor. I'm like, well, look around. It's not like we have gold covered coffee pots, right? Like, we take that money and we shove it back into the community, whether it be through science fair awards or scholarships, sending kids to space camp. And so that's a cool opportunity of, I get upset with our treasurer if our balance gets above a certain amount. We're not giving away enough. And so that was one of the other focuses, is finding more ways where there's more opportunity to be able to give back to tomorrow's leaders. And so that was a big piece of it, is how can we go beyond these 11 scholarships and find others? And Terry and Gloria McKerney, who run that part of AFCEA, they run it. I always joke, like, everyone else is in charge of planning the events and figuring out how to bring money in. And the two of that, their only job is to write checks and spend it out. And it's the best job of a nonprofit, right? And they do an amazing job at it, right? Cool. They're constantly finding us opportunities to do that. So those are kind of three of the things that I'm really most proud of. There's a second side to that question.
And what are you hoping? Where's AFCEA going? What are the next steps that you want to see continue?
Yeah. So I really want, there's a couple of pieces. I want all three of those missions to continue to stay with the organization. And that goes with succession planning and working with Anna, as she's been behind me, and the EV behind her, and the EVP behind her. So I'd really like to see the mark that I've left on the organization stay there. But I'm also really excited to see what the new cadre of leaders bring to the organization. Some of that new blood, some new ideas. Like, I've been there 6 years. You could start to say, like, Matt, we did a conference every year in November, and you just kept doing it because you were president and that was the way it was done. Somebody else is going to throw in an idea of, like, well, if we move it and change the agenda, we can get a different demographic of people attend. Like, I'm interested to see what they're able to bring. I'm going to move over to the board of directors, which is a cool idea because it's just the advisory group, and you can kind of throw grenades into a room and then walk away and let other people figure it out. But one of the reasons that I wanted to step into the board of directors was it gave me an opportunity to still have a little bit of influence, but also be able to be an observer and watch, like, what this new group
it's like
is
being
able to
the
do.
grandparent, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to, when the baby starts to cry, you can hand it back.
Great analogy. It is. It's almost exactly that.
Yeah.
And then be able to, go to a couple events and shake hands and be like, oh, look at my grandkids. Aren't they beautiful?
Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Show it off. Yeah. Very good. Well, what else? So we're kind of, we're approaching the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of takeaways or calls to action?
I would be remiss if I didn't do the things that I was supposed to do. So, I mentioned at the beginning, we really value being able to give back to the community. And some of that is putting together events and conferences. And I'm not quite sure when this is going to air, but so I know it's not going to air by our next event, which is next week. But I will say, each year we do our C4I symposium. So this year it's November 4th through the 5th, right here in San Diego. It is, as we talked about earlier.
That sounds like a challenge right there. Like, well, Aaron, I don't know if you can edit it that fast and get this thing out by next week, so that people can.
I won't talk about the October event. So I'll stick to the November.
That's the October. Okay.
Yeah. So the November event.
Yeah, I think that's easy. Okay. That's doable.
Okay. Yeah. So November 4th and 5th is our symposium. We dovetail it with NDIA's Fall Forum. So we're Tuesday, Wednesday, and there Thursday, Friday. The other piece to that we've added on the last few years is a golf tournament on that Monday. So just sharing that Monday the 3rd.
Jimmy's all over that.
Yeah, I saw your foursome already signed up.
He doesn't like
You and I
golf.
had golf.
Well,
We've had that conversation.
Well, unless we're going to do the golf cart for
yeah,
some.
exactly.
I'll be
Yeah.
down with that.
We'll serve beverages.
That's
That
right.
was my only concern about having Jimmy take on all the BD stuff, was that he doesn't like golf.
Yeah.
But I don't either. So
It's-
it's,
Neither do I. Like we're at the right table.
yeah.
I've actually had the idea of maybe we sponsor the 19th hole.
I like
Like
that a
the-
lot.
Oh, that's what you
do.
were saying, because you went out in
Yeah.
the golf cart and drove around, just
Yeah.
got everybody drunk,
Yeah,
right?
that's an
So
easy
yeah,
way
we
to
could
do
put this nice Intrinsic first logo on a golf cart.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
drive around. I'm down
There
for
you
that.
go. Okay.
And the reason we like to do that is everyone's coming into town for NDA and AFCEA, and rarely do we have an opportunity of having all those people who are going to go sit in chairs and take notes and ask questions, but to give them an opportunity to be able to network and meet new people, some people that don't live here that are flying in. So that's a big thing that I'm plugging. And then we've just finalized NAML, which is our machine learning AI conference that we put in partnership with NIWC Pacific. Make sure I get the date right. That's March 1st through the 5th. So we just signed our contract with the venue, and we're starting to work with the team over at NIWC Pacific. That's a cool opportunity because it's not one that AFCEA specifically puts on. We're a partnership. And so it's nice, again, back to that triad of important organizations that are a piece of it. So I think those are kind of the two things that I wanted to make sure I plugged, just like
Very good.
I do want to talk about sponsoring a golf cart. I think that'd be a lot of fun, actually.
yeah. The nice part about being a nonprofit, you have an idea, we'll take your money and put your logo on
right.
anything you want, right? Like you want to fly a blimp over the golf course, we will let you do it.
That's
No idea is a bad idea.
I'm actually, we know
Are there any
Oh,
guys.
blimps in San Diego?
Oh, no. I'm just thinking, we know a guy who can make a sign for us.
Yeah.
Get that on there.
Yeah, he's got a sign buddy.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to kind of say in closing outside of the events is there's this, I remember when I first joined AFCEA, someone had said being a leader of a volunteer organization is like herding cats. And I remember thinking sounds really dysfunctional and really hard. And I've learned that that's not true, right? If you are able to give the individual some of the autonomy, make sure they know what the bumpers are, it actually works pretty smooth. And there's something about everyone wants a little bit of structure, a little bit of that mission, of that
100%.
common goal. And therefore it becomes super easy as a leader because all I have to do is provide the bumpers and the North Star, and all the cats stay within the bumpers. It really is. And I think
I would strongly advocate that everything you're learning about a nonprofit, I really believe it translates to a
Sure.
profit. It really does. And I think that's what anyone that goes and leads a nonprofit gets it. And I think they can be intentional about those same actions in a private world as well.
Yeah.
Any organization. Yeah.
That's fundamental leadership. You know,
Yeah.
I like how Kim Blanchard talks about servant leadership, because he talks about the pyramid. As you start, there's basically two aspects. First, you have to set the direction, right? And like you said, the bumpers, you set the guidelines in the bumpers. Right now, the organization I'm working with that's what we're doing: mission, vision, values, principles. Principles, the way we're doing is essentially the behaviors. At CSA, we called them always and nevers. It was, if we believe in this is the direction we're going and the vision we're hoping to achieve, mission, vision. And then the values and the behaviors are, how do we do that? What's the approach and what are those bumpers? We always act this way. We never do this. We always treat people in this way. We never, do that. And then,
Well, before that, but in that moment though, that's where the team, the followers are responsive to the leader to understand and take in those values.
yeah, and you can get feedback from them to
Right.
make sure everyone's aligned, right, and on board. And essentially that ends with objectives, right? What are our goals? What are we trying to achieve? How are we going to get there? And then you flip it around, and your job is just to help people achieve that. Make sure you're removing the blockers, providing the support they need. And if they're still learning, right, even if they're a bunch of experts, you still need that minimum amount of guidance. But
So now
the lower their ability,
the leader becomes responsive to the team.
and that's where
at that point.
situational leadership comes in. The more direction you
Yeah.
provide based on their level of ability, the more support based on their level of confidence or motivation quality. But that's it. You're just, call it herding cats or whatever, but it's not really. I mean, that
gives
analogy,
a chaos and idea, but if you can
Right.
kind of dial it in.
it doesn't have to be chaotic.
Yeah. I had a leader once underneath. I mean, he obviously wasn't using the right academic words around it that you guys have been able to distill it down to. But one of his things was, if you have a problem, part of you coming to me needs to be, what is your missing resource? And like, that's like his role was like to
great.
insert the missing resource.
Yep,
So like,
that's right.
this project is going well. What's the missing resource? You need more people on it. You need to extend the deadline. Just tell me the missing resource. And that's what I do as a leader.
That's a lot better. I've heard, I forget the book that I read, what they talked about, the saying, like, don't just bring me problems, bring me solutions.
Yeah.
Right. But the problem with that is that if you're telling people bring me solutions, you're putting this in position like they have to be able to solve the problem themselves. And so then you may not get to the problem because they don't have a solution. Bring me the information and what resource you need. That's not necessarily solving the problem. I think it's a much better way of looking at it.
I didn't like the solving problem either, because it assumed like if they knew the solution, they wouldn't even be coming.
What I need you for? Why am I here? Why am I here? It's like, come on.
Oh, you just need attention, huh? It's like, okay, it's a good solution. You go ahead.
Right. I could pat you on the back if that's what you were looking for.
Excellent.
Anything else, or are we moving into jokes at this point?
I'm ready to move
sounded
into
like
jokes.
you had your dad joke
I got
ready
3
to
or 4
go.
pages of. No, I'm just joking.
You flip it over, and just like
they'll let you. Well, it is funny.
Drea would do that to us. Dr. Zagarmi, sometimes somebody would send him something, an email, and he'd print it out, and he'd literally go through like 2 pages of jokes. With us. He's like, huh? Did that? No? Okay, well, I got that. I got another one. All right, keep it coming. Keep it going.
I being the father of a 21, 18, and 16-year-old, I have years of experience of really good. But my go-to, probably my first ever dad joke is, what do you call half a tuba? A one-ba. It's my go-to dad joke.
A one-ba?
At least I didn't get the other noise. Awesome. Yeah, that's my dad joke.
All right.
I said
more. Well, if you talked it up like you're gonna roll.
No. I'm only gonna make you guys suffer through one.
I got one. It says, how many programmers does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know.
0. It's a hardware problem.
Okay, I got one.
Where's
how many teenagers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They just hold it and let the world revolve around them.
That's right. That's good. There you go. I like it.
That. Yeah. We get you another.
Yeah. Thanks.
You got any?
I mean, the last one I hear. So Ben comes in my office at least once a day and pushes that button right behind you with the dad joke 3000. But I think the last one he had on that one was, what does a grape say when you step on it? Nothing. It just lets out a little whine.
Yeah, no, this has been great. I really, it's nice to have the chance to have this conversation.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you came with some jokes.
I learned a lot about AFCEA, honestly. I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So I really do appreciate you coming and sharing that with us.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thanks for coming. I don't have any wise things to say. Is there any last
I think
words of wisdom or?
Yeah, I mean, if people are interested in being a part of AFCEA or any of the other industry organizations.
How can they connect with you? And do you want to share your email or website? Or
Sure, yeah. So our website is it's san diego.afceachapters.org. Mm-hmm. And on there, you can get onto our mailing list. The easiest way actually is through our LinkedIn page. If you just look up the San Diego AFCEA chapter on LinkedIn, that we post everything there. You can reach out to me or any of our team there. So I think those are the 2 places. If you just want to learn a little bit more, go to a couple networking events or plan our next conference. Anything.
I just thought it's, what's the hot ones, right? At the end, he's like, this camera, that camera, that camera. Tell the world what you want them to
do. I did my plug-in enough. Yeah. I'm good.
No.
I can't steal from him though. All right, good. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
it's been great.
We'll now fade to the credits.
All right.
List the producers and the directors.
Camera.
Lighting.
Congrats! You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for tuning in. We genuinely hope that you found value in our conversation. If you liked it, please click that like button below and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on our current episodes. And if you didn't like it, you can click the dislike button, but make sure you click it twice. We're eager to hear from you, whether it's your thoughts, questions, topic ideas, or if you're interested in our leadership training and consulting support. Leave us a comment below or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. We're open to any and all feedback. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to having you back for more insightful leadership discussion. Until next time.